Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for all coming. My name is Monica Frienden. I'm the Maddie's Fund Director of Feline Lifesaving at Austin Pets Alive. So, nice. Leave it to Auerbach in the middle there, starting trouble already. Watch out for her. I've been at APA since 2012, and I'm basically the easiest way. I am in charge of all things cat. So I am the, I think, requisite cat lady on the panel today. I'm here to talk about our felines, and then we've got a lot of dog experts too. So we're going to talk about high volume nuts and bolts of foster for both cats and dogs. And then let me plug really quickly that we've got Maddie's Fund apprenticeships across the board for all of us, where you can come to Austin and learn hands-on with us, foster operations and feline life-saving operations. So if you're interested in those, hit us up afterward and we'll get you that information.
Thank you, Monica. My name is Lorian Epstein. I'm the Maddie's Adult Dog Foster Coordinator at Austin Animal Center. I've been there for 2 years. I like being called a dog expert. Thank you. I co-lead the Dog Foster Program Apprenticeship in Austin with Reagan here. She'll introduce herself in a second. That's about it. That's all me.
I'm Reagan Goins, and I am the Maddie's Dog Foster Program Advisor for American Pets Alive, the Dog Foster Assistant Manager for Austin Pets Alive, and I used to work for Austin Animal Center. So I do lots of things dog. Austin Pets Alive, we have around 3,000 approved foster homes and anywhere from 200 to 500 dogs in foster at any given time. So hopefully this presentation will show you how you manage that level and hopefully get you all there.
I'm Kelly Dewar. I'm a foster program consultant for Maddie's Fund. I kind of got into this in a really kind of roundabout way. I was a volunteer for the Fairfax County Animal Shelter when Tawny Hinman was director and Kristen Auerbach was the deputy director there. And I'm going to talk about foster recruitment, but two really important things, two reasons why I'm up here today. While I was a volunteer, a lot of animals in the shelter obviously have shelter stress, and it causes their behavior to deteriorate. Kristen, one of the first things that she did was she turned all of the volunteers into fosters automatically. And this was really important because I had been a volunteer for several months, and I had been thinking, I should probably foster. I really love these dogs. I get attached to them. I'm already trained to handle them. And it takes a month to go through the whole process of getting into the foster program. So, I'm just gonna put that on the back burner. And literally this came up in my mind probably 17 times. And because the process was so long and you had to go to a separate orientation and all of this stuff, I just never went ahead with it. But when Kristen made all of the volunteers into fosters automatically, bam, done. I was like, sign me up. Then they created a short-term foster program. So the dogs were able to go on weekend foster at that point. And my husband and I had talked, and we were like, well, we can't do long-term foster. Our lives are just way too busy for that. And so when she said, we're going to start a weekend foster program, I was literally the first person who signed up. And I decided to I asked, who is the dog in here who is absolutely, their life is on the line? Who do you need me to take home? I'm going to apologize really quick. I'm going to cry like 18 times in the 10 minutes I'm speaking, so I get a little passionate. So we took her home. She was amazing. We brought her back to the shelter on Monday. I cried like a baby. She was totally fine. She got adopted within like 4 days and she'd been there for about 7 months. And the reason that this happened was because we took her home and people knew about her. They learned what she was actually like in a home. And we were able to put those pictures up on social media, and it totally got me involved in this. And that's kind of how it started out. I know a whole bunch of, we eventually built a behavior foster program. 13 out of 14 of those fosters who were like really experienced behavioral fosters started out as weekend fosters. So we're going to talk a little bit about recruitment and some really exciting research that Maddie's Fund has done. One thing that I think we all know is that foster care is the most humane and cost-effective solution for housing homeless pets, clearly. And one thing that everyone has trouble with is recruiting fosters. I don't know, did anybody go to Kristen's session the other day on saving more lives by using the organizational chart to find, to be able to find employees when you don't have the money to add employees. Thank you. So one of the things that she was talking about was that the adoptions per capita in Pima County are about 1%. They're a little over 1%. And this varies widely. What we noticed was, when we went around the room and asked people to calculate, was that some counties have like a 0.029% adoption rate per capita in their county, and others like Pima have a 1.1% adoption rate. The reason is because some of these shelters are able to convert potential adopters into adopters. And I think that in foster, it kind of works the same way. There are a lot of things we can do to convert those potential fosters into fosters and actually grow our foster pool. So, do you have any idea, what do potential fosters know about fostering? Like, how many people know that there's a homeless pet problem in their community? Any random guesses on percentages? Good question. Good answer. So, 16% of people actually know that there's a homeless pet problem in their area. This is really important because foster, as you know, saves lives. People have no idea. If they don't know that pets are actually dying in their area, they don't know how it saves lives. And this is really important for potential fosters, for turning them into fosters. Also, we know that adoption and fostering kind of go together. They both save lives. You have neonatal kittens in a shelter, you can't save their lives without foster. Because if they're on, stray hold, you can't adopt them out. You have to put them in a home so that they can get fed and everything to be able to save them. People have no clue how important fostering is, right? What the market research that Maddie's Fund has done says is that people actually rank fostering way down low with donating money, donating supplies, and volunteering. It should be way up there with adoption. This is really important for us because we need to tell our supporters this. If they don't know, they're not going to apply. They have no clue how much fostering saves lives. So, prospective fosters' reasons not to foster. Does anybody have any idea? Like, what are some reasons that prospective fosters don't foster? Work, right. What else? Too sad. Mm-hmm. Right. To human attachment. Mm-hmm. Right. So with the market research, these are the things that were determined that the biggest reasons that people decide not to foster. So getting attached, not having enough time, their existing pets, issues with them, general uncertainty, housing. What is one foster program that can wipe out every single one of these bubbles? Any idea? Virtual? That works. Short-term foster, field trips. You have field trips or weekend sleepovers. The time commitment is minimal. You have no issues with existing pets because you don't have to even introduce them. You have less human attachment seemingly less human attachment because you've only got them there for, a couple hours or a day. It's much easier to dip a toe into the water than to jump off the diving board. So, helping to turn those prospective fosters into applicants. What we need to be doing is telling our supporters exactly how fostering is going to save a pet's life. This is extremely important. One of the things that we do at the rescue that I'm on the board of, we have a shelter that is saving about 30% of their cats. The lowest hanging fruit is kittens, and the ones that are dying are the ones that have drug-resistant URIs. So in our messaging, we don't say, come foster for us, cute kittens. That's not going to make an emotional connection between a supporter and our organization, and it's not going to tell people that these kittens are going to die without them. And you don't want to say that in a way that is going to make them sad. You want to let them know in a way that they understand. So we say things like, kittens, are one of the most at-risk pets at the shelter we pull from. They are, but when they get a URI, it's really hard for them to get better in a shelter environment because of the stress. Also, they are infant immune systems are not developed enough to be able to get over this. When we have fosters, we can save their lives by putting them into foster. Stress is less. They get better. We're able to give them the antibiotics that they need. And it really goes, this messaging and telling them exactly why they are able to save these animals' lives goes a long way toward recruiting those fosters, especially if we have a picture or two of a kitten that actually needs to be pulled. Also, give options. Options are really, really important. People do not want to take a pet home for the next year and a half. Nobody wants to be like, I'm going to try fostering for like the rest of my life. They want to try it in a very short period of time and then get used to it and then kind of work up to being a longer term foster. This was one thing that in the market research was really, really apparent. Also, making foster familiar to them. General uncertainty is a big thing. People don't know what it's like to foster. They don't know they don't have any idea what it's going to be like. So making it familiar to them is really important. Talking about foster all the time, I think, is extremely important. One of the things that I do in my work with Maddie's Fund is I consult with shelters. And I almost always, it's happened to me at least 5 times where a shelter will call and we'll be talking and they'll say, well, we just can't recruit any fosters. And this one shelter in particular, it was a very large shelter who shall remain nameless. And they said, we just can't recruit any fosters, what do we do? And so I took a quick look at their social media and I went back through the last month and I just looked at every single post. Literally, they were talking about foster, they were recruiting fosters 0 times, 0. If you wanted to be a foster, you had to think about that in your own head and be like, maybe I should foster. Then you had to go to their website and then you had to click on the link to fostering and read about it. There are very few people who are going to on their own think of doing this without being asked by a shelter or a rescue. They said that at that point they were getting about 35 applications a year, which is not really surprising to me. But it gave me this idea, well, what about the shelters with the biggest programs? So I started looking at social media. I looked at APA, Austin Animal Center, the 3 Lifeline, DeKalb, Fulton County, Casey Pet Project, and Pima Animal Care Center, and went through their social media and looked at how many times they're talking about fostering. So not just asking for fosters, but bringing it into the conversation, talking about it, like telling stories about foster, saying this pet is available for foster or adoption. Obviously, recruitment posts where they're trying to get a pet adopted, and they just mention, hey, this pet was in foster, and we learned that he likes to, I don't know, he's just a total couch potato or something like that. These shelters are talking about foster in 30% of their social media posts. For organizations that are posting most of the time, like 3 to 5 times a day, they're talking about foster more than once every single day. This is really, really important. Over time, this changes the culture. People look on their social media and they see foster all the time and they're like, this is what we do. This is what our community does, and it's normal. It's not something that like totally random, like animal people, who, are different than me do. It's what our whole community does, and it changes the culture toward fostering. It totally normalizes it. The shelter I was talking about earlier, who had the 35 foster applications in the last year. I spoke with them recently in December, and from February to like December, they changed things after we spoke, and they had gotten in 600 applications for foster, which made a huge difference. Word of mouth is another thing that I think we take for granted. We need to talk to our fosters about talking to their friends and their family about fostering, because having people, talk to their friends about it goes a long way to helping alleviate those doubts about foster. One of the reasons, and also making sure that we have as few barriers to becoming fosters as possible, making it as easy for them to go from the application to getting a pet in their hand as we possibly can. If we can do it the same day, that is ideal. I've noticed it at the rescue that I'm on the board of, because we have a ton, probably a third, I think I looked at the data, about a third of our fosters come from word of mouth. And I noticed at the shelter that I used to foster for, they didn't. And I think I'm sure the reason is because the process for recruitment and onboarding was so long at that shelter that people didn't want to apply. At the rescue, they can apply and get a pet in their hands within a day or maybe a couple of days. There's a big difference there, and also, word of mouth and being able to speak with other people about their experiences is really important. Messaging is also a really important thing. They tested out some messaging on potential fosters to see which type of messaging would actually help change potential fosters into applicants. So this is the top one. Fostering is an important step on a pet's journey to their forever home. A home environment is best for their health and well-being. Fostering cats and dogs allows them to thrive in a home environment and practice forming bonds with their caregivers. For pets who have been waiting longer for adoption, foster caregivers can help assure adopters that these pets are a good fit for a family and home, and speak to the type of home or family that would be the best match for the pet. This explains it so succinctly. This is what fostering does and how it helps with adoptions, because another thing that fosters don't know is how foster works with adoption. Like, they think it's not connected, but it's absolutely connected. Another top message was about options. There are many different ways to provide foster care, from something as simple as dog walking to a bigger commitment like nursing newborn kittens. There are all kinds of ways to foster that don't even require bringing a pet into your home. You can do as much or as little as you want, and all pets can benefit from time outside the shelter with someone who cares. So when they looked at this messaging, 33% of prospects became more interested after seeing one of those messages. This is really important. A third of people you can actually start to convert by just the right messaging. A couple of things that I think are really important are the ones who see a homeless pet problem in their area because you're telling them, hey, we need your help. And also those who are familiar with fostering, which also goes along with you really need to keep fostering familiar and make it something that you talk about all the time. Recruitment tips: making it easy to foster. Never stop recruiting. It's one of those, everybody has that concern. There are so many fosters who fail. And I'm totally a multiple time failed foster, and you can't stop it. It's, it's something that's gonna happen, and it's a good thing. But you really have to continually recruit in order to keep your numbers up. Your most basic goal in any type of recruitment for foster is emotional connection. And you can do that best with making pleas for individual pets and telling stories. Telling stories is really, really important. So real quick, we've got some kind of outside the box ideas that I just love for foster recruitment. The first one is a yard sign that Ventura County, and I think Pima County is also using those. Short-term foster, slumber parties. This is Detroit Animal Care and Control. They did this slumber party. They've been keeping data on it. So they've done a couple of slumber parties over holiday weekends. And it's just a night or two. They have the potential fosters they've been gathering data on. So 60% of the people who have fostered through this program have never fostered anywhere before. So this program is working to turn those potentials into foster applicants. 60% of those applicants also are going from this holiday sleepover and they're becoming longer term fosters. So it's a great way to kind of start the ball rolling and also convert some of those potentials. Any type of short-term program is great. Also, having your pets, especially long-stay pets, available for foster or adoption. I'm gonna cry when I tell this story. I apologize. So don't stop with people. Businesses can also be really effective fosters. The Asheville Humane Society has a program where they have businesses do fostering, and they have them do it for their fractious cats. And they get these animals adopted. They have several businesses that participate. They get these cats adopted within 2 weeks. This is Magnus. He was at a bird feed store, and the bird feed store noticed that he liked to watch the videos of the birds. So they posted that on their social media. Bam, he's out the door. also having businesses even help you promote your program. In Fredericksburg, they have a field trip program. They have business partners. They put their sign in the window, Adventure Tales. People who are on field trips can come in there with the dogs. They usually get like a special treat. And the businesses also look great because they are helping to promote the program. T-shirts, the one here on the bottom is a sign, a billboard sign company. It's electronic. Electronic sign companies, when they don't have anything to put up, like it's free for them to put something up. So it's not like it costs them money to have to like make a billboard or anything. So this sign company didn't sell all of their billboard advertisements, and they went to the shelter and they like created this partnership and put up all of these made all these great billboards for the local shelter and helped them to start their foster program. Also, is there anybody in here from Dallas? A+, guys. This is like the most exciting foster recruitment tool I've seen in a long time. If you're in a municipal shelter, you have like the county government at your fingertips. So what they're doing is they have these little pamphlets for foster and adoption, and they're sending them out in their water bills. Like, brilliant. They have the entire county at their disposal, and they can send this out and get in front of like everyone in their county. And this isn't just limited to the water company. In Fairfax, our friends group used to send out fundraising information in the personal property tax bills. They made like $30,000 every year because of it. I mean, these are great ways to get foster in front of people through your local government. Also, your government communications, emails, and things like that. So, yeah.
Cool. So we could talk about recruiting forever, and by far that is the biggest questions that Lorian and I get in our apprenticeship is how do I recruit more fosters? But my question to you is you recruit all these new fosters, how many of you are the only foster coordinator or foster manager in your, there they go, hands go up, right? Are there any EDs or directors in here? Stop doing that. At Austin Pets Alive, 75% of our entire dog population is in a foster home. You know what that means? I have 4 full-time positions on my team. On-site has about 13. Does that make sense? No, not much. So, what we're going to talk about now is managing a foster program, how you can explain to your EDs that, hey, I understand it's just me and there may not be more room in the budget, but here are all the things that I can do for you in making yourself worthy, right? Okay, so Kelly and I were actually talking earlier about how a foster program is pretty much a mini shelter outside of the shelter. You guys are handling all facets of animal welfare. So the easiest way for you to explain this to other people is going to be to break it down. We have this flow chart that really helps us. So you break it down to your beginning steps. Onboarding. This is getting the fosters in the door, exactly what Kelly was saying. Not only making your applications really accessible, screening if you do that, and putting the word out there. From there, once you have the person, you want to make sure that they get placed with an animal as soon as possible. I don't know about you, but when I started fostering, it was on impulse. It was midnight, filling out the application. Yeah, I can have a dog friend. Do you think a week later, if I hadn't had a dog in my home, I still wanted to foster? Or were those kind of creeping doubts coming in? Oh, this is maybe a little harder than I thought. Oh, I'm not sure if I have the time to do this. You want to get them a placement as quickly as possible. Once you get their placement, you're moving into the care position. And this is kind of where it goes out of sight, out of mind for all your directors, all the other people who aren't handling the influx of emails of, how much do I feed it, right? So your care all comes in there. And then this is a piece that people often forget about. Just because it's out of sight, out of mind, how many of you have animals that sit in foster homes for months? Right, or years. Right. What do you feel like maybe you're not doing to help get those guys out, or that your foster parent is not doing? Is it really hard to get photos from your foster? Maybe they started off with a puppy and it's 6 months later. Does that puppy look like the Born in Care newborn that's on your website anymore? No. bios, video, behavioral information. We know that in shelter is not indicative of out of shelter behavioral information. Maybe they sucked in shelter, and so all you have are really crappy notes. But oh, this person's had it in their house for 6 months. I need all of those great notes, right? So you want to make sure you're gaining marketing material from your fosters. And finally, adoption. How many of you have it so your foster has to come back to the shelter to get adopted? It's okay, that's fine. We're gonna change that when you go home, right? So basically, you wanna make it as easy as possible. I never wanna see that animal again. It needs to be able to be adopted straight out of that foster home. I don't need to see it. I will do all the paperwork at the shelter if you want me to do that. But basically, that animal doesn't need to come back to the disease, the stress, all of that good stuff. And then there's a little word in the middle of all that, management. If it is just you, how many of you are doing all of those things every day, all the time? Well, that's less than I thought. If you are the manager of your program, is it possible that you shouldn't be doing any of those things? Yes, it is. And this is how you do it. So, you want to actually be a manager of your program. So if you are spending your days writing pleas, actually handing off dogs to foster, you know that foster that just wants to talk to you for 30 minutes? Like, I've handed the dog off and it's like, I'm so glad for you. That's great. Okay, you have to do that. You don't need to be the person doing that. Screening adopters, getting supplies. You guys need to focus on identifying your gaps. How many of you have performance measures in your foster programs? Oh, like only a couple, right? How many of you actually know the average amount of fosters that are that are able to be placed with a dog from any given time? Who would be tracking that information? You're like, Reagan, that's just another task. Okay, that's fine. Let's show you how to do it. So these are your mandatory tasks that if you kind of let any of these drop the ball, you're going to start getting a gap. You're going to start getting the dog that sits in the foster home for a year. You're going to start getting lack of new foster homes. So onboarding, you need to be reviewing application and onboarding new fosters. Like Kelly said, make it as easy as possible for them to be a foster. APA does not screen. I don't. I'm looking at an application and I'm not looking at it. One of my volunteers is doing that for me. And they're asking 3 questions. Are you 18 years old? Do you live within 40 miles of Austin Pets Alive? If I Google your name, does it come up as dog fighter? No? Great, you're a foster. I'm not gonna call you. We used to do phone screenings. No one picks up the phone anymore. I don't. So of course you're losing people by that. All of our stuff is done via email. Most people use email now. Placement. You're identifying the pets needing foster. Ideally, every animal in your shelter is available for foster, but you know those guys who might need it a little bit more. Your medical cases, your shut down dogs, your dog that keeps getting adopted and returned because they are great in shelter, suck in a home. You want to identify those guys, writing and posting the pleas. If you were in our talk yesterday, you saw APA's Trello board. It is an online free website that basically I just put up cards of every single dog, and my fosters can view it at any time. They can email me about a dog at any time, and I update it in real time. So it's not like, okay, Fluffy found a foster, great, I'm gonna drag this card over to foster found, and it immediately updates. You need to have a system like that. Matching fosters with pets, sending pickup instructions, making sure they know where to come and when to come, handing off your foster, tracking the location of your foster pets. Does anyone have a spreadsheet that does this, or do y'all just rely on Chameleon and stuff? Because Chameleon's gonna lie to you. You might want to have a spreadsheet for that. And also tracking returns and sitters. A return is not a failed foster. It gives you information. And do you offer sitters? So like, okay, say I don't live in Austin. I'm out of town this weekend. Who's watching my foster pet? Hopefully another foster can do that so they don't have to come back to the shelter. Care. Obviously, you need to track vaccines and preventatives, any surgeries, basic care, and you're answering your in-care questions, which this is the thing that bogs me down every day if I didn't have volunteers to do that, because we know all the fosters' favorite question to ask is, how much do I feed this dog? All right, marketing. Collecting your content from your fosters, videos, bios, information. Do you guys just have a quick, easy Google form that you can send to your fosters? Be like, hey all, here's this link, please fill it out. All Google Forms generate into spreadsheets with that information for you. That way you're not constantly having to wonder, where did I get this information on this dog? Where's this email? Da-da-da-da-da. And adoption, reviewing adoption applications, tracking your interviews, processing, and knowing when a dog got adopted, and you can remove it from your spreadsheet, right? How many of these mandatory tasks do you think I do every day? None of them. Why? It's not my staff members doing it. You have to utilize your volunteers. APA has 4 full-time foster staff members, 80 volunteers underneath us. And do you want to know how many of those 80 volunteers I talk to every day? 0. Because they are all managing themselves. They all have protocols. They all have things where they don't need me and are still getting that work done. You want to break things down into small tasks for them. So each one of these tasks perhaps have one volunteer that is in charge of doing that. Every single week, you have one volunteer reviewing those applications, one volunteer onboarding those new fosters with a welcome email. Same for processing adoptions and everything like that. And you're like, Reagan, that all sounds great. How do I actually get volunteers to want to do that? Here's how. You give them a job description. You guys need to start treating your volunteers like staff members. They're willing to do it. That does not scare them away. Each of our volunteer positions has a job description as if it was written up for a staff member, explaining the tasks that they need to do, the person that they are reporting to, the time that it takes, time expected. They also have a protocol. So what I do is I will draw up this job description. It maybe takes 15 minutes. Also, we have templates. So if you want to grab my card after this, I can email you all the templates that we have. I send this out to our entire volunteer base. I'm like, here, I need help with someone just processing applications. Someone emails me back. They're like, Reagan, I think I might want to do that. I'm like, great. I'm going to sit down and have maybe a 30-minute conversation with that person, maybe even on the phone, because I'm going to send them a step-by-step protocol of what to do. This is basically your dummy's guide for processing applications or whatever it is. This protocol needs to be step-by-step. Literally, you open the browser, you click on processing applications in Shelter Love or whatever, applications manager. Click on this name. You're reviewing the application for A, B, C. Once you do that, you're going to click submit if everything's good. Make it so dummy proof. Once you have these people, let people follow their passion. We have one volunteer, her name is Pam Martin, and she is a godsend. She runs my care team. So she's not only a foster, she takes distemper dogs, she takes all of the ortho cases, diabetes and everything. But that has allowed her to have an amazing wealth of knowledge that honestly I don't have. Who is better to run my care team, her or me? It's her, absolutely. So basically Pam has created a system that works for her. And then when she has a task that she can no longer fit into her schedule, she's going to recruit another volunteer to be on her team. So Pam is our dog care lead. Basically, she's a volunteer, but I treat her as staff, and she makes sure that everything gets done. If she has a problem, great, report it to me, but I never hear from Pam, and everything still gets done. So you want to give them ownership and ability to grow their teams. If you have a person who really loves photography, great. I am giving you the content portion, gathering content from my fosters. Grow it. They will have more ideas than you have time to come up with. And now, any municipals in the room? Yeah? I'm sure what you guys are thinking is, Reagan, how do I give them access to all the fosters' information and not expect them to run around and stalk them or things? There's such a thing as a confidentiality agreement, which again, I can share with you. It is them filling out a form that says, hey, you are now privy to this really cool information. Please don't be stupid with it. In the year and a half, 2 years that I've been at APA, we've never had a problem. And again, 90, 80 volunteers that work with that confidentiality agreement. You want to be flexible, find things that fit their schedule. Obviously, you want to treat them as staff, but they don't have 40 hours under their belt. Some of them do. Pam does. Create as many work from home positions as possible. I never see my volunteers because they don't work on site. They all work from home. Now, those of us with Chameleon or PetPoint or some things that can't be accessed from home, that's okay. What if you have a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet or a Google document that can be accessed from home that they can work with? And give up the control. I know that in a lot of places, volunteers are still scary, right? They come from a good place. They want to help you. All you need to do is set the expectations of what you need, and they will meet them. When they mess up, I treat them as staff. Let's have a conversation about it. I know you didn't mean to do this. Let's talk about how we can achieve things in the future. And how can I hold them accountable? Making sure that you have shifts. Maybe sign them up for, okay, I need someone on email to check email every 2 hours on this day. Can you do that? Set them specific expectations, and then they can thrive. Cool. So, this is just a breakdown that if you want to take a picture of, it starts to give you some ideas to take things off of your plate, because you're like, Reagan, that's a lot of information, and it seems really scary, and how do I start? So, break down your process again: onboarding, placement, care, and adoption. Okay, so maybe you have the lead that processes the applications and sends the materials. At APA, we have an outreach volunteer. She's a person who can only log on like once a week. That's great. I need her to log on once a week and check in with those people who just got approved and have not taken a dog yet. Why have they not taken a dog? It's been a week since we processed your application. How can we help you? How is the process confusing to you? Let me reach out to you. Placement. Ours is a lead that handles all of the on-site materials. It is a staff member. They're handling like the interaction, hand-to-hand face-offs, things like that. Our volunteers handle all the emails. They create my Trello board, our dog foster plea board. They publish the pleas. They're sending the emails. They're matching the dogs. They're telling people to come to APA and pick up the dog. Care maintains the emails that are coming in about basic care, setting up schedules, vaccinations, if they work with your clinic or however that goes. You can write them a resource guide or a reference guide. I can share ours with you that basically it has canned emails for when anyone emails in and says, my dog has diarrhea. Great. Here's a canned email. They don't even have to think about it. Send it out and tells you all the things about diarrhea. How much do you feed your dog? Canned email. That way they're not taking a lot of time and you're still holding them accountable for information and not having to train them as extensively. Adoption, what they're doing is they're scheduling all of the appointments, things like that, asking for marketing, all of that, looking at the adoptions, making sure they're kosher, everything in that world. Okay, great. That's enough volunteer talk. Now we're going to talk about retention of your fosters.
So at APA, we've got anywhere from 440 cats and kittens in foster at any given time, up to 1,400 in foster on any given day. That's a lot of foster homes. And while we are always recruiting, because fosters are always leaving through attrition, they're moving, they've changed their minds, just natural lifestyle changes, we also don't want to lose them, because the more we can retain, the less we have to recruit. And I feel like foster turnover is something that's a pretty big problem in industry. Do you all have problems with fosters getting angry and leaving and they just don't stick? This is an issue for all of us. And so at APA, I'm really concerned about retaining all the fosters that we possibly can. So it involves creating a support network for them and addressing why they leave to begin with. One of the easiest ways that you can figure out why people are leaving to begin with is to simply ask them. And you're not going to just open the floodgates and say, hey, tell me what we did wrong and fill your inbox up with hate mail, right? We send out a poll every single year to all of our fosters to identify issues. And it's just a simple Google poll that we send out that asks, what keeps you from fostering harder animals, ringworm cats, medical cats, behavior animals? Is there something that stops you from doing that? So that way we can address the barrier and eliminate it to make it easy for them to foster. We ask them to rank your satisfaction from 1 to 5 and several different markers. You know, how was our wait time in the clinic? How do you feel about our communications? Did you receive good customer service from everyone you interacted with? What's a problem? What can we be doing better? We ask them if they're interested in several initiatives that we have ongoing for them that they may not be aware about. Do you know that we have happy hours for you? Do you know that we've got fun things going? Do you know that we offer a walk-in clinic for you? Do you know about these things? And so we ask them lots of those questions, and we figure out exactly what our gaps are so that we keep people happy and keep them aboard. What the results of that survey tells us every single year is that if we want someone to take a harder foster animal home, we have to give them more back. Every single foster asks for more support to take on harder cases. And what they call support means more guidance, more advice, and more communication. But most importantly, they do not want to feel alone if they take on a hard animal. You want me to take home a fading kitten, pan-Luc positive ringworm, leukemia cat with toxoplasmosis and bites? You better be there, because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm willing to try, but don't just throw me out into the woods and leave me to my own, right? They want more back from me if I want more from them. That makes sense, right? And the other big thing that every single foster said, I am doing you a favor, you had better damn well act like it. And I agree with them, right? How we treat our fosters is sometimes not great. It's the same way we treat our volunteers sometimes, right? There's always been this staff versus volunteer kind of headbutting in industry. And we can get the same way with fosters, right? We all get those emails from fosters, what kind of worm is this? How much do I feed my animal? And you're like, oh my God, this is a 10,000th email a day. If you had just read what I sent you. It's very easy to get frustrated, right? Because we know the answer, but the foster doesn't know the answer, and we can't do that. These people are doing you a favor. They're saving the animals in your shelter, they're taking it home, they're caring for it for free. They don't have all the expertise that you do. Treat them well, because they are doing you a favor, and that's what they want. They want you to act like it. And they do expect some special accommodation because they're doing you a favor. So what does support look like for these guys? At APA, we've created several free, easy, cheesy ways to support our fosters that anyone can do. We've created several closed Facebook groups for our specialized fosters. These are so easy and so free, and I'm so pleased with how these have worked for us at APA. We've got a hospice and major medical Facebook group. It's closed. These are for our hospice and major medical fosters, so both cat and dog. And you're taking home hospice animals, you're taking home very, very broken creatures. This is a safe space for hospice and medical fosters to talk amongst each other, to support one another, to grieve when it's a sad day, to celebrate happy moments when it's a good day, to ask questions at 2 a.m. that, hey, my feeding tube clogged or my bandage came undone. Should I call the emergency line? And somebody is always up on Facebook at 2 a.m. to say, oh, nope, I can help you with that. We have people who, they do a bucket list for animals who are hospice, and they share the good days of what today's bucket list item is, and they'll have, they'll celebrate those moments. They'll say it's hard. This is their safe space where they have support from people who understand exactly what they're going through and provide that emotional support that we are so often short in bandwidth as staff of the shelter. We have a ringworm group, same thing. Here's how to dip my kittens. The photo on the bottom right is someone who tried dipping cats for the first time and came away with some torn shower curtains and bloodied up arms. And she reached out and said, I don't think I did it right. And someone else was right in line to say, I gotcha. Here's how you do it. Let me help you. So you're enabling people to support one another. We've got the same thing. We have a neonatal closed Facebook group, Distemper Angels. We have decompression and foster Facebook groups. Allow those people to support one another because they get what they're going through. And most importantly, too, you're creating a community of those like-minded people. And because there's a community, they feel more empowered to help. And they keep coming back. And you're creating a family. Emotional support is critical for folks, especially if you're talking hard to adopt animals, those with medical or behavior challenges. Those are very emotionally hard for fosters to take on, so you have to provide some level of emotional support. These groups can do that. For our hospice support, we emphasize that there's no solo decision making. Our fosters are involved in that process. We want to hear from you if you're a hospice foster on how your animal is doing, because you know it the best. And we're not going to ask you to make that decision. That's what our hospice fosters always are afraid of. Am I going to be expected to know when it's time? I don't know how to do that. What if I'm too early? What if I'm too late? And we have to tell them, don't worry, we're walking this path with you. You're not going to make that decision alone. On the same token, they don't want to be told, today's the day, bring your cat in, we're going to go ahead and put her down today. They don't want to hear that either. They want to have input, they want to be involved in that process, and we are going to respect that choice, that you get a say, right? You get a say in when it's time. We want to hear your feedback. We allow all of our fosters to be present when euthanasia time is upon us for hospice animals. So we allow them to be part of this process and have ownership of the animal that they are taking good care of, and providing them that emotional support. We give them the hospice scale tools so they can analyze quality of life. But these groups are something that you can do when you go home. They're completely free, and I have been so impressed with, this has made a huge difference for us, and especially our challenging animals, allowing fosters to support other fosters. Our fosters have also continually told us, you want to keep me around, value my time. Our fosters are forever upset if they have to wait in our medical clinic. They had an appointment and we had an emergency come in and they've had to wait. Super frustrating for all of us, right? We all experience this when we go to the doctor or the dentist and we're sitting around waiting for an hour, like we get upset, right? So imagine your foster who's doing you a favor and then you can't even be on time to something that they scheduled. That gets very frustrating for them. But understandably, emergencies happen in the shelter, so there's going to be some wait time. Something that we did for this, to alleviate this, is we opened walk-in wellness clinics for our fosters, where you can just walk in on a weekend, get your vaccines, get your flea prevention, get your heartworm treatment, get all of your easy, cheesy things out of the way without needing to schedule an appointment. At first, our clinic at APA kind of balked at this, like, oh my God, we don't have time for even more work. Are you serious? Now our clinic loves these because they can get through 300 kittens a day in walk-in wellness clinics, and they're entirely volunteer run. If we're doing rabies vaccines, we just have a vet on premises. But they're entirely volunteer run, and we can get through 300 cats a day that now don't need appointments. And appointments can be reserved for more pressing things when fosters have real issues that need to see a DVM or need to see a tech. They're incredibly supported by our fosters. They find them super convenient, of course, because there's no appointment times needed. So those are a great way that you can appreciate your foster's time if you can set up a walk-in clinic for them. Did you have a question? The walk-in clinics, yeah, so we have them on campus at Austin Pets Alive. However, we've also held them in churches, in VFW halls. We've had them in parking lots. You can have them anywhere, and especially if you are a foster-based organization, you can still have foster clinics. You just pick some place and go set up and do them there. I work with a lot of organizations, and your foster coordinator is running around to foster parents home to home to home providing vaccines. Stop that. No, set up camp and make them come to you. You can totally do that anywhere. Some other ways we prioritize their time. For us, meet and greets, if you have a pet and foster, a meet and greet can happen at your home, it can happen at our shelter, it can happen at Starbucks, it can happen at Petco. Wherever is convenient for you, you can host the meet and greet with your foster pet. Our adoption events, your foster parent does not have to stay with the pet when you drop off. We value your time when I understand that most people don't have all day Saturday to spend with their foster animal at an adoption event. So you can check that animal in the morning, leave it with us, go about your day, run your errands, go home, take a nap, whatever you want to do. We will call you at the end of the day whether your pet was adopted or not, whether you need to come back and pick it up. So you can drop off and then come back, pick back up. And enable your fosters to support one another by these Facebook groups is another great way to enable them to support each other by saying, hey, I can drop off at the adoption event if you can pick up. I've got extra supplies. My dog or my cat didn't eat all this food. Does anybody else want that? Lastly, appreciation for fosters and what that looks like. We do a lot of foster happy hours. These are not things that we pay for. On the cat side at APA, I don't have any budget whatsoever for foster appreciation, so we have to be creative and think outside the box. We have happy hours all across Austin. We'll do them quarterly. Fosters like to get together with other fosters. And so we will just call up a restaurant and say, hey, we're expecting 50, 60 people tonight. We're all going to drink and have some cocktails. Would you guys mind putting out some pro bono snacks? And they're usually more than happy to accommodate because we're all there, animal people drinking like fish. They're very happy to have us. We do have a Platinum Foster Recognition Program at APA in alignment with our Platinum Foster Volunteer Program, where if you foster a certain number of animals and over a certain number of hours per year, you get special recognition. And one thing I have found is that cliques and competition create teams, and they build teamwork and they build resiliency. So we really emphasize our special niche groups, our major medical and hospice fosters, our ringworm fosters. If we can make them a little click, they feel really, really good about this. And so we offer them incentives like we will make little t-shirts for them, like fungus fighters. And for our major medical cat fosters, we made little shirts for I foster the 2%, for the last 2% of cats to be saved. Ask me how. And these are not t-shirts that we are paying for. We put them up on like a print-on-demand service and let them buy them themselves. And people go crazy for them. All of you who have been to conferences, I've seen what you will all do for a free t-shirt, and you will stampede one another, and it's like Black Friday, right? Your volunteers and fosters will do the same thing for a free t-shirt. So that's something that you can look to do to retain your fosters. But most importantly, ask your fosters what they want. One thing we did very recently in the last couple months is ask our hospice and major medical fosters, what do you need to be happy and stay with us? Because you are so valued, we can't lose you. And we're just going to proactively ask you, what do you want? And we did a little Facebook poll in their group, and we just said, do you want a t-shirt? Do you want free food, free cat and food and cat litter, or dog food? Do you want, we came up with like a list of like 4 things that we thought that they might want, and then we had a little tab that says, other. Tell us what you want. Does anybody have any idea what they asked for? Do you think they wanted a t-shirt? Free food? Beer? Yeah, I think 1 or 2 people may have asked for whiskey or something. What they asked for was something I would never have imagined had I not asked them. What they told us was, you know what we want more than anything? I want my foster pets' cremains back individually, and I don't want to pay for them. I would like to see a fund created so that I can have my foster pets' ashes back. Because right now they have to pay for them if you want your individual personal foster's ashes back. Right? I would never have thought of that. And I was able to go, oh my God, now I'm crying, and I need to create a new fund. Let me go talk to Maggie in development and tell her I need more money. But I would never have known that, and that's what they asked for. So it pays to just ask people, hey, what do you need from us in order to do more for us? Because the answer that they give you may surprise you, and it may show you why they're really in this and how you can accommodate them. So right now we are working on a fund to give those folks the ability to have their personal foster pets' cremains back. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lauren, and we're going to talk about data, my favorite thing in the world.
Hello, y'all. Before I get into my slides, I just want to acknowledge you all as attendees for making your way to Austin, Texas, surviving almost till the end of the conference. We still have the rest of the day, but coming with open minds, coming to learn, wanting to impact the life-saving in your community. And all the volunteers, I want to thank you too. I also want to acknowledge you all for surviving these refrigerator rooms. So I want to ask everybody to put your notebook down. Sorry, put your notebook down, stand up, and like shake it out. Like, can we just get a little warmth going in this room? Shake it out. Get your blood moving. Y'all been sitting for almost 3 full days listening. Thanks. Okay, so raise your hand if you feel like you are really, really good at math. Cool, thank you for being honest. Round of applause for the nerds. No, I'm not trying to bully you. We're all animal welfare nerds. Nerds are great. How many of you regularly collect data for your foster program? Yeah, I try. It's not regular. So this is a problem. If you haven't already figured it out, data is one of the themes of our conference. From this morning's fundamental talk, it's really, really important. It's the best way to make decisions. We have to do it to figure out what we're missing. We have to do it to figure out what we're being successful at. It's so easy for us to get stuck in the weeds on the hamster wheel and just feel like we're not getting anything done. You walk through the kennels and there's still animals just lining the cages. It's really easy to think, oh, it's because of this reason that we're so over capacity, or it's this foster's fault that that dog bit somebody. And while it's human nature for us to like want something to blame, like we need a reason for it to be this hard and be this way, it's not a good way for us to make decisions about our program and make improvements. We need to be able to look at the data to see what's really happening. So data provides us insights into gaps. It's so important to use those facts instead of feelings. And then it can justify staffing improvements, resource requests, and of course grants. Anytime you start a new program, so we've been talking about ways to recruit your fosters, improve adoptions, use short-term fostering. Anytime you're going to start a new little project, collect some data. Start it, see where you're at now, start your project, and then track your numbers throughout the period. And then if you've got some successes, go to Maddie's and say, look at our numbers, look what we were able to do. We want to expand this program. It's going to be hard for you to get grants if you don't have data. And it's going to be hard for you to get a assistant, foster coordinator. It's going to be hard for your volunteer coordinators to agree to give you some volunteers or help you recruit volunteers to support your program if you can't prove that you need them. So some ways that you can get data, and this is coming from somebody who's not that good at math, and I get overwhelmed. I get really confused when we're talking about percentages and dates and looking at all these numbers and what does this mean. So I'm trying to make it simple for you guys. So some of the best ways you can collect your information is from your shelter management software. Almost all of them have native reports. So you probably don't need to go and create something brand new. Look and see what reports already exist in your system. Maybe they don't give you exactly what you need, but you can take that data and extrapolate it, or maybe you can just take a report that counts your overall intakes and tweak just one piece of it so it's counting something that you need regarding the foster program. And I don't know where I was going with that. That was a bad example. If you aren't an expert or you don't necessarily, well, first of all, ask all your staff members and find out if you have somebody who knows Chameleon or knows Pet Point or knows Shelter Love really well and can look at those reports or help you figure out exactly what criteria to build into a report to get the data you need. You might have that person floating around in animal care. Like they may have come from some other job where they have experience and you haven't asked them, so you don't know that they have this knowledge base. You might be really interested in learning more about how to use crystal reports. Go watch some YouTube videos, right? I've done that and I haven't been able to figure out crystal reports. But crystal reports is not a Chameleon-based tool. Are you guys all familiar? Like crystal reports is the reporting mechanism and software that helps you build the reports that feed into Chameleon, right? But crystal reports is like a business tool. So if it's not somebody in your organization, like put it out to the community, ask your volunteers. Like I'm betting you somebody has come from some business tech job who has SQL coding experience or has at minimum used crystal reports and can help you build something that you need that's going to help you on a regular basis. And then spreadsheets are another great way to collect data. And spreadsheets are unfortunately time intensive. You're not going to be able to get data if you don't keep up with the spreadsheets. A lot of times what you're going to have to do is pull content out of your shelter software management and plop it into a spreadsheet, right? Or if you're using spreadsheets to track something on a regular basis, somebody's got to be updating that, and it's not going to be you because you don't have the time, right? I've created countless spreadsheets to track like the marketing efforts for my fosters or just the top, 20 long stays and, the efforts that we're doing to try to get them noticed. It's not something that I've been able to do on my own in a sustainable way. But that's a great thing that you can give a volunteer. A lot of times you can give them that job and they can do it from home. Google Sheets, G Suite, right? That's all cloud-based in the universe. They don't have to be on site, and they don't even need access to your shelter software database. A lot of times you can run a report that is just mountains of numbers, and it's a PDF, so it's not filterable or anything like that, but that's something that a volunteer could do from home, and they would love to sit down in front of the TV and 1 hour per night they just plop data into that spreadsheet. Questions about that? Use it. Try to figure out the best way that you can get your data, you can keep up with it by asking for help. So it might feel overwhelming, but you gotta, walk before you run. You're not gonna be able to get this big data. You're not gonna be able to, find this massive information to go and ask for lots of money until you start with small numbers. So start really easy. One sort of very simple formula is pick an animal population, an activity like an intake, an outcome, or moving into foster, and a length of time. Use those three things to pick a set of information that you can dive into and you can pull out of the systems. So you could look at the amount of neonatal intakes per week. You could look at the amount of senior dog outcomes per month, or the amount of underage puppies that are transferred per year. And these are just some examples. Another example that you can sort of extrapolate and plug in your own ideas. If you're not doing kittens, you can talk about adult dogs or behavior dogs or what have you. Pick an animal population, track and pull out the number of kittens arriving to the shelter each month, get the number of kittens that are dying in the shelter each month, and get the number of kittens with a live outcome per month. And then you can start a foster program. Start sending those kittens, those underage kittens into foster. Continue tracking those numbers, maybe every week, maybe every month. And that's gonna show you if it's working. That's gonna show you if it's not working. And again, you're gonna be able to see those gaps and you're gonna be able to justify resources to continue doing that. Another thing you can do is look at your euthanasia reports in detail. That can be hard, right? That's painful for some of us to really deep dive. But if you get your reports and throw them into a spreadsheet, you can filter by animal type, you can filter by age, you can filter by probably length of stay, and you can pick an easy population and start sending those kids into foster. You're not gonna know, it'll help give you a place to start, right? Give you a target population. You probably have tons of information and great ideas in your notebook, but it can be overwhelming when you go back home. So try to pick the low-hanging fruit, right? That's what APA did when they started pulling animals from the city shelter, when they were killing 50% of the animals. They looked at the youth report and they said, oh, all of the underage kittens are dying. Let's start getting those out. And then they went to the next population. I can't remember what Ellen has said, but I've heard her talk several times. I think it was distemper, maybe it was parvo dogs. And just start building support for that specific animal population. Looking at length of stay for a specific population. In Austin, we're having a large dog length of stay problem right now. Our intakes aren't any drastically different from the previous year. Our outcomes aren't any drastically different. But the dogs that are coming in and staying 30 days are, on average, are staying another 30 or 60 days. So the dogs that are coming in are and not getting out right away are just becoming stagnant, and they're not bad dogs. They don't have behavior issues. They, a lot of times, are the pitties. But we're examining that problem by looking at the numbers. We didn't know that, the reason we're over capacity is because those dogs are staying and not moving, until we actually looked and saw how many of those long stay dogs we had. It's really hard to make time for this, right? There's always an emergency. There's always more care emails you have to respond to. So you have to set aside time to do this. And as a coordinator, as a manager, it's your job to figure out what your program needs. So my recommendation is set aside 1 day per month. Make it day to day. Don't do anything else. Just pull your numbers, plug them into a spreadsheet. And even if you're not able to calculate and sort of figure out what those numbers mean, just pull them, right? So that then when you do have that day, you can go back and filter and come up with your percentages. All right, KPIs. Remember, we learned that vocabulary word this morning. Key performance indicators or measurable goals. Again, I'm not a math wizard, so I like to set up really easy ones so that, they're attainable. We don't get overwhelmed. So at that first measurable goal, we haven't hit it, we don't fall apart and just drop everything. So I built this simple little calculation. So X equals any type of animal in the shelter. So pick your population. Pull out the number of X in the shelter. Find your current number of X in foster. And then as an example, I want to improve my goal is to increase the number of animals in foster by a quarter. So multiply the number of X in foster by 0.25. That's going to be an increase of 25%. And then set a time frame. So you don't have to increase your foster population by 25% tomorrow. You don't even have to do it next week. But maybe once per month, you want to have a 5% increase. So start setting those goals and build yourself a little chart so that you can have some goals to look for. And every time you dig down and pull that data out, you'll be able to see how far off. Maybe you hit it, out of the park, and maybe you increased your foster population by 10% that month. If like we heard this morning, if you're always hitting your goals, if you're never failing to hit your goals, that's a problem. So maybe the next month, instead of having a 5%, you increase that KPI to 15%. Let's do it. Let's make it even more. And so, be tracking this data for a specific set of time. So for example, if you want to increase your foster population by 25% and your goal is 5% per month, at the 5th month, you should have hopefully hit your 25%. And that's when you can break it down, figure out if you've hit it, if you've exceeded it, and then show that to your team, right? Take that to your managers, show that to your fosters. I mean, your fosters will want to know how successful they've been. They might not want a bunch of dry numbers, but you can translate that into some measure of success for them. So counting your numbers before a program, start your program, and count them at intervals during your program. This is the best way that I can recommend. Data is so important for a foster program because you need to show the amount of success you have so that one failure doesn't derail the entire thing that you've built, right? It's really, really easy for us to think that one lost dog means that we're complete failures, or one, kitten death means that the program's not working and we have to change something. Just because you have something that doesn't work doesn't mean you have to go in and change everything and remove access to that specific animal or specific population of animals. It just means that something bad happened. And yeah, there's some things you could probably do to prevent that in the future, but you don't need to make it harder to take an animal home. You don't need to make it harder to foster to try to prevent one bad thing in the mid of 50 successes, right? So you always have to weigh the risk versus benefit when you're making decisions like that. And unfortunately, as foster coordinators, we get blamed, right? We have to take on that responsibility of what our fosters did or didn't do. So you have to back yourself up with data so that you don't get, steamrolled by other folks in the organization who might try to shut you down. Okay, so just a quick summary of everything we talked about today. You have to tell your supporters why you need fosters. You have to tell the stories. And you have to talk about foster care all the time. It has to be part of the conversation. People won't know that you need fosters if you don't ask. Know your value and the value of your program. Be understanding and compassionate. These are people who are taking these animals into their homes. It can be really devastating when you come home and find the dog has eaten your whole couch, right? And even though that's not something that I'm not gonna pay for them to get a new couch, but I am gonna be compassionate and listen to how much they love that couch, right? Create a program and market it so that people want to be on your team. If it seems impossible to get on the foster team, if people are having to jump through hoops, if it is this mandated and super strict and structured program, people aren't going to want to volunteer to be part of that. Of course, always telling your stories. Give up control and perfection. Perfection is the enemy of life-saving. You've heard that so many times, but it's really true. Take time to write down the steps. So building those job descriptions. If you find yourself doing something over and over and over again, like sending that one email, like you're just typing the exact same thing. A lot of times what I'm finding is, people are having trouble with leash reactivity, right? They're emailing saying, this dog is so aggressive on leash whenever we walk around. And so I find myself writing over and over again what that aggression might be. It sounds like leash reactivity. That doesn't mean they're aggressive. Here's some ways to handle it. Come get a harness from us. Take treats on your walks. And I, have lots and lots of resources that I like to share with people because I love talking about leash reactivity. But I don't need to write all that out every time, right? Like once I feel like I have a really good communication, I've probably written it 10 times, I turn that last one into a template and then I just copy and paste whenever somebody emails me about leash reactivity. It saves so much time. Don't forget to say thank you. Like Monica said, these people, your fosters feel like they're doing you a favor, and they are. We couldn't be saving the animals without them. We couldn't be getting animals out of the shelter and seeing who they really are and making them available for adoption without our fosters. So just acknowledgement, simple acknowledgements. If you're not dealing with hospice cases, just saying thank you, sending them a thank you card, right? Getting something in the mail is amazing. It's so fun when you get a letter with your name on it. And then you can, put that card on your refrigerator, and it's just a symbol of recognition and showing that you really do value their participation in your life-saving efforts. Tracking the numbers, even the simple, easy data can say a lot. Ryan Clinton said this, that even the small numbers can be extrapolated. So you don't need to go find information for all the months and all the years. Just look at this week. And then 4 weeks later, look at that week again. Or look at the week that you're in then. So just start small, start pulling the numbers because it's gonna show you a lot. And create some really simple basic KPIs to keep you on track and help you make logical decisions for your program, help your management make logical decisions for your program, so that things don't get crushed because of, bad things happen. Bad things happen all the time. Bad things happen out in the community, right? I don't know if anybody has numbers for like the amount of bites that happen the community versus the amount of bites that happen in foster, but that's something I'm always like interested in. If anyone has that data, come talk to me.
I have some of that data.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. Okay, we'll get into questions in a minute, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about our apprenticeships. Some shameless plugging here. So all of us are program advisors, which means we teach apprenticeships on the subjects we know really well. So the Maddie's apprenticeship program and the Maddie's Life Saving Academy have apprenticeships all over the country, countless subjects. So Reagan and I do the dog foster program apprenticeship here in Austin. It's 4.5 days. Monica does systematic feline life saving, which is like sort of an overarching shelter, all the different programs that you can do to save cats, right? She also does ringworm. And Kelly here does medium and large adult dog foster in Arizona and Virginia. Yeah, cool. And the great thing about these apprenticeships is that when you apply and when you get approved, Maddie's gives you a stipend to travel to the place where the apprenticeships are happening. So it shouldn't cost you anything. You might need to take off work, but Maddie's is focused on getting this information out there and helping you build your programs to save lives. We've got a dog foster program apprenticeship next week, and we don't have enough people. We have open slots, so if you want to come back to Austin or just stay here, you can, but there are apprenticeships all throughout the year. So come talk to us if you're interested in applying for any of them. There's also outside, there's a booth. Ryan is sitting there with pamphlets for all of the Austin apprenticeships. And then you can find lots more information on the Maddie's Fund website. There's a whole apprenticeship site where you can look through every apprenticeship that they offer.
Also,
yeah, go ahead.
Maddie's University online, we've put the Piedmont apprenticeship and the Charlottesville field trip and sleepover apprenticeship online. They're online courses now, so you can do that as well.
Any questions?